Hey, what's up, everybody? Greetings, mateys. Be sure to hit subscribe so you can tune in for every adventure here on the VHS Pirate Ship. So thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Greetings, mateys. It's me, the bald-headed bastard of the briny seas himself, Captain Adam. And welcome aboard the VHS Pirate Ship. And today, we're sailing far away and going on an Odyssey. The Odyssey of Oz Tapes.
I like the Wizard of Oz.
Me too. Yarr.
I like the Tin Man.
Me too, matey. Me too. So avast me hearties, we're heading for Oz. Yarr.
The Wizard of Oz. Quite possibly the greatest film of all time, and that's not much of an exaggeration. There are really thousands of reasons to say that, from the fantastic imagery to the catchy-as-hell songs and the seemingly infinite influence it has on popular culture. The film has since had many different spin-offs and reboots and reimaginations, and it certainly became its own theme because every Saturday morning cartoon show or sitcom usually referenced The Wizard of Oz in some manner. In fact, in 1990, The Wizard of Oz had its own Saturday morning cartoon show, which was, at the time, 50 years after the fact, which gives you an indication on how important this film is. It premiered in theaters August 25th, 1939. The world hasn't been the same since. It was a huge deal, mainly noted for its stunning use of Technicolor, which was a budding technology at the time. But contrary to popular belief, The Wizard of Oz was not the first film to use such technology, though it was the first film to combine black and white and color footage. And what's also kind of unbelievable is the fact that the film didn't make its budget at its original release in 1939. It wouldn't be until its re-release 10 years later in 1949 that it would finally start making some big old money.
Big old money.
And speaking of big old money, it was also MGM's most expensive film of all time. It had a budget of a little over $2 million, which back then was pretty much like all the money in the world. And then you add in all the promotional costs, and then it becomes a giant duck, wherein that's a pretty big bill.
Whack.
And speaking of promotional aspects, it's always fascinating to see original posters of old films. And there was a shitload of them for The Wizard of Oz, like this one. Why does the Tin Man look like that? It looks like RoboCop. Oh well, whatever. So, what does come to mind when you hear The Wizard of Oz? Maybe flying monkeys, the Wicked Witch, the Yellow Brick Road. Lots of things come to mind. But is VHS necessarily one of them? If you're like me, then you probably assume that there really was just a few releases of the movie and that's about it. Well, get ready to be wrong in that assumption, because today's episode, we're examining the Odyssey of Oz Tapes. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, so let's keep it as simple as I can, and let's start at the beginning. The film is based on The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, a novel by L. Frank Baum, which was published in May of 1900 and would eventually give way to an entire series of Oz books through the early 1900s. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is based around Dorothy, a little girl from Kansas that, well, you know the story. It was a tremendous success, so much so that eventually the Library of Congress would declare it the greatest fairy tale of all time. Now, with any film that's based on a book, there's going to be some things that are lost in the translation from book to film. Some things just work better on pages than they do on film. And The Wizard of Oz is probably the best example of this, because there are some glaring differences between the film and the book, only to be outdone by Jurassic Park in the whole film-to-book translation. Because if you've seen Jurassic Park and you've read Jurassic Park, you're kind of like, what the fuck?
Where's the fucking Stegosaurus?
Where was I going with this? Oh yes, The Wizard of Oz. Book-to-film translations are always a funny thing, because some material just does not work on film. A great example of this is the ruby slippers. Now, in the book, they're actually silver slippers, and they were changed to ruby slippers because ruby red looks better on Technicolor film than silver slippers would, which was a tremendous idea because that turned out to be one of the more iconic images from the film. Another difference from book to film is the Wicked Witch of the West. In the film, she has green skin, a pointy nose, a pointed black hat, and a broomstick in which she flies on, which would become the template for witch imagery, much like Gandalf is the template for wizard imagery. But in the book, she's quite different. See, she only has one eye, and instead of a broom, she has an umbrella. And also, she has a magic cap, which she uses to summon the flying monkeys. And they actually do incorporate this into the film, though it is very brief, and if you blink, you miss it. And there is a number of things that are omitted from the film that were in the novel, such as there are more antagonists than just the Wicked Witch and the flying monkeys. There are the Hammerheads, which, despite their appearance, are mean little fuckers that show up and just fuck everything up. And there's certainly differences between plot points in the film and in the book. Like in the book, it's field mice that help them get out of the poppy field and not snow. But I'm getting off on a tangent here. Let's examine the many different VHS distributions this film had. And there are quite a few. So, let's take a break and we'll get back to it. Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship will return after this. Yeehaw! Come on down to Cowboy Pork Chop's Show Compute Family Restaurants. Never mind the lawsuits, come on down and rustle you up some grub. Get our world-famous fried fart basket, only $5. Or lasso yourself an armpit and cheese submarine sandwich, only $5. Or try our homemade booger loaf platter, only $5. And try our new dessert menu. Get yourself a slice of loogie meringue pie, only $2. Or get yourself a big old used bathwater milkshake, only $3. And come in and try my new chocolate wonderful. I swear it's chocolate. And get a free Captain Adam toy with every Buckaroo Kids meal. And be sure to check out our new Little Buckaroo Playland, now snake-free. And get a Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship commemorative glass with the purchase of any entree. So come on down to Cowboy Pork Chop's Choke and Puke Family Restaurant. That's right on the corner of Route 25 and Get-A-Whiff Boulevard, right beside Bill's Dirty Mattress Outlet. Yeehaw! Chocolate Wonderful is actually diarrhea. Cowboy Pork Chop not responsible for death or illness. It's Fat Boy Surplus. Fat Boy Surplus. Closeout irregular husky boys clothing outfitters, specializing in all the things nobody else wanted. Come on in and get mega deals. Mega deals on irregular clothing to fit your chunky little lad. Your kid's fat. This Saturday, get 3-sleeved cartoon cat t-shirts, only $5. $5 Or get uneven-legged, itchy, scratchy jeans in huskies and cadets. They'll hate them. Fat Boy Surplus. Fat Boy Surplus. And this week only, get a 3-pack of fat socks. 2 for $5. Or 5 for 2. Your choice. And as always, there's free balloons and chicken wings for your fat-ass little kid. So come on down for mega deals. Mega deals. At Fat Boy Surplus. Fat Boy Surplus. Close out irregular husky boys clothing outfitters. We now return you to Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship. Okay, so before we can start talking about the media transfers for The Wizard of Oz, we gotta start with the original media transfer when the film was formatted for television by CBS. It premiered on CBS in 1956, and now that it was on television, it would be reintroduced to the public. And though CBS had the broadcasting rights, MGM Studios would still get royalties from the film. Plus, CBS and MGM were pretty much the same company, and that's really when the film started making some big old money. Big old money. And it would be broadcast annually on CBS, and it was a huge deal. When The Wizard of Oz came on TV, you watched it. But to watch it, you had to wait for it to come on TV. And that would soon change. It was then, in 1980, that The Wizard of Oz was first released on VHS. It was released by MGM CBS Home Video. It is a perfect example of the beauty of early VHS cases. I mean, look at that thing. Early MGM CBS home video releases used what is known as a book box. And us VHS collectors go absolutely gaga over this shit. I mean, I have some of these in my collection, and they're films I've never seen or want to see. I bought them because they look really cool, and plus they were only 50 cents. So, you know. And this one's never even been opened. This case just looks so cool. And MGM CBS Home Video used the same case design for their beta releases also. Though the beta copies are often more difficult to find than the VHS copies, I'm sure you could find one for a fair price. What the fuck? $9,250 for a beta copy of The Wizard of Oz. And they state that they don't even have a Betamax player and cannot guarantee the tape works.
Throw in free shipping and you got yourself a deal.
How interesting. But a VHS copy of this could run you about $30, which is pretty reasonable considering. 'Cause it sure as hell ain't $9,000 fucking dollars.
$9,000 fucking dollars.
But it's always a testament to who is selling the item. Here is another person selling the Wizard of Oz Betamax cassette for only $62.36, which is not a bad asking price. And again, I have to say, because it sure as hell ain't $9,000 fucking dollars.
$9,000 fucking dollars.
Excuse me. And with this VHS, there are two different variants that feature two different MGM logos, but that's about the only difference. And then the film was released again on VHS in 1985, which was released by Video Kids, an MGM home video subsidiary at the time, and it's in a kids clamshell. Oh man. And this version is also known as the Videophonic Sound Edition, whatever that means. And in this one, they also altered the movie a little bit. The Kansas scenes were now in black and white, instead of the sepia tone they had been, which does make it pretty unique. And though it's not as rare as the book box version, it can still be pretty difficult to find, and if you do find it, you can find the price ranges from $3 to $20. And then there's always the people that sell it for this, $100. Well, it is a sealed copy, so I guess that's okay, but still, 100 smackaroos is still pretty steep.
Big old money.
And in 1989, the film was released on VHS once again to celebrate its 50th anniversary. And this is when they started using the normal cardboard sleeve, but this one is pretty unique because the front of the sleeve opened up to reveal a booklet that was filled with nice little tidbits about the film and the film's history. And they changed the Kansas scenes back from black and white to sepia tone. And its value nowadays isn't very much. You can find one for $5. I mean, being that it was its 50th anniversary, they did distribute a lot of these, so they're not really rare. Maybe finding one that still has the booklet is, but generally, $5 to $7. And then it wasn't till the 1990s that, wait a minute, what's this? I have never seen this before. What is this? Well, what you're looking at is a rare 1988 release of The Wizard of Oz. And it was mainly only distributed in Canada, which is why we've never really seen this version stateside. What a great look it has. Look at that dark red background. And they used a pre-production image of the Wicked Witch when she has her hair down. This is a very intriguing thing. And the tape itself bears the silver sticker that the early MGM CBS home video releases were famous for. This is a great Wizard of Oz variant. And fortunately, though it is rare, you can find one for around $15, which is a pretty decent price. And though this isn't a Laserdisc show, I think it's worth mentioning the distributions of this movie on Laserdisc, because they had the standard release, but then they also had the 50th anniversary release as well. And that one does have a variant. And look, they used the RoboCop Tin Man picture. Okay, so that was The Wizard of Oz through the 80s. Now, what did the 90s have in store? Let's find out after we take a break. Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship will return after this. If it is Buco, it is good. This is Buco Products. Buco Products makes long line of good things. We make the walkie-talkie toaster, which is a toaster that is also a walkie-talkie. We also make internal combustion engine that is also potato salad. And now we make new chicken-flavored adhesive tape at always low price. We are Buco Products. If it is Buco, it is good.
Buco Products.
Injured at work, rough divorce, was a loved one killed in a horrible circus accident? The law offices of Dillon and Triceratops. They'll fight for you. Call today. We now return you to Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship. As the world moved into the 1990s, the home video spectrum was not yet done with The Wizard of Oz, as we would see many different distributions in a very short amount of time. 1991, 93, 95, 96, and all the way up to 1999, they were seemingly just cranking them out. So let's start with the 1991 distribution. And it's nothing really to write home to Kansas about. It's your basic cardboard sleeve design and a bit humdrum compared to the other distributions we've seen today. But what is weird about this one is the fact that they reissued this in both 93 and 95. The exact same one, no differences. And by 95, VHS tapes had become so plentiful and common that many older films were now reissued on VHS and sold between $5 and $10, brand new. Which is interesting, considering that 10 years earlier, a new VHS could run you about $90. And these 5 and 10 VHSs could be found everywhere. Which is why, if you're looking to buy a Wizard of Oz VHS, the 1993 or 95 edition is the one you usually find. And surely that fact would keep people from selling them today for an outrageous amount, right? Nope, not at all. Here is someone selling what is more than likely the 95 edition for $800. What? Yep, pretty remarkable, isn't it? And you thought people who sold Disney VHS were bad. Man, Wizard of Oz sellers are just the same. But anyways, let's move on to the 1996 distribution. And it's in a kid's clamshell. A damn kid's clamshell. And this is the era when lots of films were being re-released in kids' clamshells, much to my chagrin, aside from the fact that it's pretty much just like the 91, 93, 95 distributions, except it's in a kids' clamshell. This one does have some pretty interesting traits, such as it was remastered with THX sound, and this would be the last distribution of the film put out by MGM Home Video, because somewhere along the line, the home video rights were sold to Warner Brothers Home Video, which brings us to our last video distribution of the film, which is the 1999 distribution released by Warner Brothers Home Video. And again, it's in a kid's clamshell. And as far as their value is concerned, it seems to be often difficult to discern reality from insanity. Here we have the 1996 distribution selling for $500. Oh, I'm sorry, they marked it down. It's $425. Oh, but there's free shipping.
Yeah, now we're talking.
But all that was just one aspect of the Wizard of Oz VHS spectrum. Let's point the VHS Pirate Ship in another direction and chart a new course for Return to Oz. Sorry for the dark and creepy segue, but this film is definitely known for being dark and creepy. And though initially it was a commercial failure, Return to Oz has since enjoyed cult acclaim. When it was originally released in theaters in 1985, parents that took their kids to see this movie, assuming it was the bright and magical musical like The Wizard of Oz was, soon realized how wrong their assumptions were, and they began walking out of theaters nationwide. Instead of bright and cheery songs, they were greeted with dystopian imagery, a mental hospital, shock therapy, and a hallway filled with disembodied screaming heads. And though parents may not have liked it, this all makes for a fantastic movie, and this movie is absolutely fantastic. And what's even more fantastic is this film almost wasn't made. Disney had bought the rights to the other Oz books in 1956, where they lied dormant until the 80s when the idea was broached about making an Oz film. But executive producers at the time didn't want to make an Oz movie, until, legend has it, that George Lucas stepped in and had a little chat with these producers, probably saying something like, "If you don't make this movie, I'll make you watch Tucker." And so the film was made and released in June of 1985. The film is based around a combination of two of the Oz books, The Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz. And the film definitely explores some dark places. It delves into the mental trauma that Dorothy may have had from her quote-unquote dream. So they send her to an asylum, where the film then delves into 1900s quackery with electroshock therapy. And then later in the film, we see that in Dorothy's absence, things have gone horribly wrong in Oz. It is a dystopian Oz. The yellow brick road has been torn asunder, and everyone has been turned to stone. And though Return to Oz is mostly known for being dark and creepy, it's also praised for its awesome practical effects and marvelous costumes. And though the film didn't have much success at the box office, the VHS realm would breathe new life into the film. It was released on VHS in 1986 and didn't have nearly as many redistributions as The Wizard of Oz had. There was one re-release in the mid-90s, and there was a 1999 release, which would be the last VHS release of this film. Then there is the UK release and the Japanese release. And the Japanese Laserdisc has cover art that is pretty unique and awesome. Now, what is very interesting about the 1986 original VHS release is the built-in price tag it has. As I had mentioned earlier about 1980s VHS pricing, between 80 and 90 bucks was about the average back then. But you can find a copy of this for around $40 today. And along with the built-in price tag, this copy also has a built-in parental discretion tag, which is fascinating because you just wouldn't assume that parental discretion could go along with an Oz movie. But if you've read the book, you'd know that Oz is no stranger to dark imagery. In the book, the Tin Woodsman's origin is pretty dark. He was a lumberjack, then the Wicked Witch enchants his axe to cut off all of his body parts, making him lose his heart. He is then reconstructed out of tin. I mean, it's kind of like RoboCop, so that's where they get RoboCop Tin Man from. So anyways, the mid-90s VHS release of this film, and I call it the mid-90s release because I remember it coming out sometime in the 90s, but it's one of those VHSs that doesn't have the fucking date on it. So, it's the mid-90s VHS release, okay? And it's not very impressive. I mean, look at that cover. It's just kind of blah. There's not really much going on with it, and what's with that wacky lettering? It just doesn't represent the film very well. But if you want it for your VHS collection, you can find this one today for around 15 bucks. And this one appears to be some kind of clamshell hybrid. And speaking of clamshells, the 1999 edition came in a clamshell as well. And the artwork is a little more exciting this time around, except for the image of Dorothy, which is kind of, who is that supposed to be? But it is the only VHS to use one of the original posters for the film. I wish they would have used this one though. Man, that is fucking cool. But anyways, you can find yourself a copy of the 1999 VHS for around 12 bucks. So, to sum up, The Return to Oz is a fantastic movie. It just has a great presence. The story's good, the effects are good, the costumes are good. It's just a really great fucking movie. And the debate has long raged on whether or not this is a sequel to the Wizard of Oz film. And to that I say, no, absolutely it's not. It's just a reimagining of the Wizard of Oz imagery. And speaking of reimagining Wizard of Oz imagery, let's take a look at one of the more famous examples. Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship will return after this. Kittykins Cat Snacks. Totally craveable, absolutely flavorful, and microwavable.
Kittykins Cat Snacks just for you. Kittykins Cat Snacks just for you.
In all new flavors that cats love, like garlic and field mouse, wounded baby rabbit, and try our new flavor combos. Like spam and salmon. Spammin'!
Kittykins Cat Snacks just for you. Kittykins Cat Snacks just for you.
And kids love them too. Kittykins Cat Snacks.
Kittykins Cat Snacks just for you. Kittykins Cat Snacks just for you.
Join the fun on Channel 1. Tonight on Channel 1, don't miss the new episode of everyone's favorite half-horse, half-robot, half-cop, RoboClop. Can RoboClop help little Gracie win the talent show? Find out on the new episode of RoboClop. And don't miss the season premiere of Night Goose, the vampiric goose who spends his nights fighting crime in the big city. That's RoboClop at 8, Night Goose at 9 on Channel 1. Join the fun on Channel 1.
Channel 1!
We now return you to Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship. Let's hit rewind and bring it back to 1978 with the release of The Wiz. The Wiz is a film adaptation of the 1974 Broadway musical of the same name, and it is a modern reimagination of The Wizard of Oz. In it, Dorothy is from Harlem instead of Kansas, and Oz itself is like an alternate universe New York City. It features music by Quincy Jones, and the cast is pretty awesome. You got Diana Ross as Dorothy, Michael Jackson as the Scarecrow, and Richard Pryor as the Wizard. The film does have some marvelous costumes and some incredible sets, Really great imagery, but it's not necessarily a kid's film, as there is some pretty creepy stuff in this one as well. The film would eventually be released on VHS in 1989, and then again in 1992, and then again in 1999. There were numerous UK releases, which could run you about $20 today, and you can find the US releases for about $7. The movie is pretty captivating, and it does contain some catchy as hell songs. Ease on down the road. All in all, it's a pretty fun movie, and certainly a very clever reimagination of Oz imagery. But let me shift gears once again and say that I'm sure many of us assume that the Oz filmography starts with the 1939 release of The Wizard of Oz. It really starts back in 1910 with the first silent film of The Wizard of Oz. It was called The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and would start a long history of Oz-related films. There was actually a number of Oz silent films released, like His Majesty, the Scarecrow of Oz. Probably the most famous one is the 1925 release of The Wizard of Oz, starring Oliver Hardy as the Tin Man. And all these silent films would eventually be released on VHS and later on DVD. And these films are pretty awesome. The costumes are great. And look at that fucking axe. Jeez. Well, let's move on to the first of many animated Oz features with the 1933 cartoon, The Wizard of Oz. And this is one of those early cartoons where nobody stands the fuck still. Everybody's just a bipping and a bopping around. And this would get multiple VHS releases as part of some kind of cartoon cavalcade collection. And remember earlier when I said that The Wizard of Oz was the first film to use black and white and color footage? Well, I was wrong. It was this one. And MGM directly ripped them off. So let's hit fast forward and go to 1961 for the animated television series Tales of the Wizard of Oz. It was produced by who would later become known as Rankin and Bass, and is quite the silly, strange, and stylized version of the Wizard of Oz tales. And the voice of the Tin Man is the same voice as Yukon Cornelius of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer fame. And in 1964, it had its own TV movie, Return to Oz, 30 years before we would be creeped out and mesmerized by the film version. Episodes of Tales of the Wizard of Oz and Return to Oz were released on VHS in 1989 by Star Classics Home Video, and you can find one of these babies today for around $5. And in the late 60s, there was also another television animated series of The Wizard of Oz called Off to See the Wizard. It was a host segment that was a segue for other television specials, and it was animated by the great Chuck Jones. This stuff was seemingly never released on VHS, but it's still pretty cool to mention. Then there was 1972's Journey Back to Oz, which had Judy Garland's daughter, Liza Minnelli, as the voice of Dorothy, and included a lot of other characters from the Oz books, except the Hungry Tiger. Why not the Hungry Tiger? And this film had numerous VHS releases, the original release being in 1983, then another in 1987, in 1989, and in 1993, when it was released with a doll, so there's that. And the VHS of this actually does go for a lot of money. Not sure why, but it does. $80 fucking dollars? And look how much the DVD is going for.
What the fuck?
And then in 1980, there was Dorothy in the Land of Oz, otherwise known as Thanksgiving in the Land of Oz, because it was a Thanksgiving special that aired on television. And again, it featured a number of different Oz characters, including the Hungry Tiger. There he is. And there is a talking pie. Just go with it. Let's not split hairs now, okay? It was released on VHS in 1981 by Avid Home Video, and then released again in 1989. And you can find the 1981 release for around $20 today, and the later release for 99 cents. So, yeah. Then there was the Japanese animated feature film of The Wizard of Oz, which premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 1982, but went right to home video here in the States. It even got a Laserdisc. And you can find this VHS today from $4 to $12. And this one appears to have belonged to Brantley.
Brantley, is this your tape, Brantley?
Who the shit is Brantley?
And then in 1983, there was another Japanese animated feature that High Top Home Video released here in the States as part of their My Favorite Fairy Tales video collection. And then later in 1986, all of that material will be compiled and used in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which was an animated show narrated by Margot Kidder, which encompassed multiple books from the Oz series. And all of these were released on VHS in 1988. And you can find these today for around $7. And then there's Dorothy Meets Ozma of Oz, which is a direct-to-video 1987 release, which is narrated by Michael Gross, the dad on Family Ties. And when it was released, it sold for $30 and was a banned deodorant promotional gimmick. Just because the movie stinks doesn't mean you have to. Yeah, this movie's not that good, but you can get it for around $8 today.
Big old money.
And then as we moved into the 1990s, The Wizard of Oz had its own Saturday morning cartoon show, which came out in 1990 and had its own VHS collection. And then in 1996, there was the Oz Kids. Oh man, do I really gotta fucking talk about the Oz Kids? No, that's fine. The Oz Kids sucks. Thanks. So anyways, then there was The Lion of Oz, which was released in 2000 and is a prequel to The Wizard of Oz. And that's pretty much all of the VHS spectrum of the Oz material. But there always has been and still is post-VHS Oz material being cranked out. Oz is just such an important part of our culture. And L. Frank Baum really hit the nail on the head with this one. And speaking of him, there was a TV movie that aired on NBC in 1990 called The Dreamer of Oz and was about L. Frank Baum's creation of the wonderful Wizard of Oz. And it starred the late, great John Ritter as L. Frank Baum. And guess what? There's even a VHS of this. So anyways, ever since the year 1900, there has been Oz material for us to feast our imaginations on. And there will be, probably until the end of time. Because there is always Middle-earth, there is always Narnia, and there is always Oz. So thanks a lot for watching. And we'll see you next week on Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship.